Khanika Chitti Kakata, Eddie Jong Pupjabama, the Bogaro, Gurega, Ayu Titi Bogai, the Canalipia, the only lovely Eluma. Say Savio Chadore, say Susi Huboni. The Catalonian Toluciano, Samadhi, Khanika Samadhi, let's over. Kayaton Hada, Khanika, Chitti Kakata, let's over. The Eddie Jongjo. I only teach a polala. As I will service was Shulu. Shuya almost secretly says each other. The second salon. There are Palo Tambushi, the rest of one. The Kunadu says a video. Saw in body, energy called a saw in the tailor Lucia. Palo Tambushi, the rest of Tambu to judging Maretti.
Today, Sayadawgyi would like to speak about Khanika Chaitya, that is momentary concentration. The nature of this is that when objects arise moment by moment, ever anew within the body, the mind becomes collected on that object for a moment by moment. And in a word, this is Samadhi. It's also called Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration. And the Buddha used the word Khanika Chaitya, one-pointedness of mind that lasts for a moment. So today Sayadawgyi would like to speak about this. So the object arises for a brief moment, and one observes this, applying effort and aiming so that there's steadfast observation. And second by second, the mind is collected on the object. So Sayadawgyi would like to explain how valuable this is, and how when one moment of this concentration follows another, so that many moments are continuous, the energy develops, and this becomes very valuable. So Sayadawgyi would like to explain about this today.
Khanika Chitti Kakata, Khanika, the Kanali, second by Lipchitwado, Chita Sei Ikakata, Polare Ayunama, the Kanali Sakya. The Polare Ayuma, the Kanali here, the Yamamu, the Kanali, the second leave here. Say, Women were teaching at the body. Elaborate. Khanika City Kakatalo, so what?
Khanika Chaitya. In this phrase, there's the word Khanika, that means occurring for just a moment. And what it is that occurs for just a moment is the mind's one-pointedness falling collectedly for a moment on the arising object. On the newly arising object for just a second, and just a brief moment, the mind falls collectedly on the object and penetrates into it and remains calmly stable. It's stable on that object. So this is called Khanika Chete Kagata.
Pozan Tokya Masoye a beauty Taibida Kama 1 by 6 8 probably polar Elalima Sikli Yotao Asset Uria Elali Mimia Mamia Duma Tidora Catora was a sativa. Everyone cannot say Jado as the Maria. Polare Ayutakanali says Jadora as a Samadhi Kora. Babu Polare, everyone was say Jadora. No tapping, no doubt. Pound no tapping, and I Pony Pinay Mama as the Canali says Jadora. Korea Chacha Podmia Ioni, Podai body. The Canali says Sapio Wendora. See, I saw the Kamala. She don't take up it. Flanay. Chore, Flanay, Chare. Who are Jamu for an anyone cigarette say Jador. Lamu for an cigarette say Jador. Chamu for an cigarette say Jador. Chore, Flanay, Chare, Bomba, you was cigarette say Jador. Sing and so yellow Yata Jamu Boma. Level, she is level was cigarette say Jador. For the super Ayo. To Poru Poseri Mavoli. Takana, say Charlie, the Mari body. Here I go. That's what we are told her. Khanika City Kakata. Amiado Resolution. Kanamata Titi. The Titi got the Mari cover. To choke the Lochi. Khanika Samadhi to the cover.
To illustrate this, when one is sitting, one puts one's mind on the abdomen and the rising arises. And in order to get the mind to that object, one applies effort. And one's observation is effective. So the mind sticks to the object, the rising. And this sticking to the object is sati, mindfulness. And the mind falls collectedly on the object. This is samadhi, concentration. So on the arising object, the mind falls collectedly on that object. The falling arises, and the mind falls collectedly on the falling. And then the rising happens again, the mind falls collectedly on it. And then the falling again, the mind falling collectedly on that object. Every rising, every falling, the mind falls collectedly on the object. And on the other objects which arise in one's being, moment by moment, the mind falls collectedly for just that moment on the object. In walking, one puts the attention on the legs, observing left step, right step, lifting, moving, placing. And on the lifting, the mind falls collectedly on the object. On the moving also, the mind falls collectedly on the moving. On the placing, the mind falls collectedly on the placing. So every lifting, moving, and placing, when it arises, the mind falls collectedly on that object, one after another. And when one comes to the end of the walking path and stands, putting one's attention on the standing posture, also the mind falls collectedly on the standing, and then on the turning. So whatever object arises, the collected mind, samadhi, the collectedness of mind is falling on that object. And the Buddha called this Khanika Chetekagata, the mind's momentary concentration on the object. It's also called Kanamatati Samadhi, that is samadhi that is established for a moment. And in short, it's called Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration.
Gurega Shukwe Ayo Atete Porum Pozerima the Kana Sasajado de Samaria the Kuji in a twemme Nenele twemme solution, Nenele Toyeno Bama Tamushi the Lums Musolemamu the Kuna who sets up your Ari Pig of his solution. Over corner of Cambodia, take the other. Tini, the Kaitama, Seki, Tanshin, Bido. No blame my body. Gurega, the great Mantiari, the Kunet who sets up on Lady Body. Shishin, the Pipiata, Dili Poria, Nalila, Tila. Hello, did Pilla Yakama? The Goga, Matida, Tiluani, ha. A little Pablo Gorora. City, the Karashin, Gorora.
In one's body, when the object of observation arises, the samadhi that falls on that object for just one moment, or for just a few moments, it has no value to speak of. But when one follows another and another and another, when they become continuous, occurring moment after moment without a break, then energy becomes fully developed, and this concentration becomes very strong. And when it is stable, the mind is pure. And later on, one comes to see how the Dhammas, the things in one's body, are related as cause and effect. And one comes to understand this even in very minute ways. So one comes to know what initially one didn't know. And the mind at once becomes quite clear.
Tu soyi Tokya Tower Dhamma. A chance of Mazo Tokya. Sopi he Karamane Nidandra Ika Karila Pota Mano. Apito ya Cheta Nichalan Tabiti He Mamare the Canalivia, the Maria. Sopito Khanika Samadhi Le Samadhi she did to the Devo, Eddie Samadhi do no Pajama Pyopyama. Sopito Khanika Samadhi Le Satan, Mimia Seiko, Nichalan, Maloma said, Yente all to be telling by that the Khanika Samadhi, the Mimia Seiko, Lova Rosario will be Lolo Shasha, Mapia or Wally, Tinta Nene, that's all over it. That Loyama Vedama.
So to describe the power of this type of concentration at the grossest level, it is said, Sopi hi aramane nirantarang ekakarena pavuttamano patipakena anabhibuto apito via chittang nichalang tapeti. And what this says is, it's true. This concentration lasts only for a moment. But it too, that means when we say this type of concentration also, then that implies we understand that there are other types of concentration also. And Sayadawgyi will explain about this later. This Khanika Samadhi makes the mind, it holds the mind so that it is stable, not moving, and so that it is calm. It keeps lobha and dosa from shaking it. These factors can't cause the mind to become shaken. That's the essential thing that it does.
Apito viya lo so tha ba ya. Apito viya soda ka samatha samadhi de atho lo loki sani ya la de kha ayu thu de bo ma bo ni sait de nyei pi lo ne da lo bo ni. Adi samatha san atho de pukkol de ayu thu de ma shit sick ka le san sait naut sick ka le san sait uma aphe 5 minuteလောက်မှစာအာယုံထဲမှာစိတ်တွေရှိနေမယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်5 မိနစ်လောက်စိတ်ကလေးအဲ့ဒီမှာကပ်ပြီးတော့ထိတ်ချုပ်ထားတော့မလှုပ်ဘူးအဲ့ဒါအပ္ပနာသမာဓိလို့ခေါ်ပါတယ်ကွာဇာအားထုတ်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေပေါ့လေလောကိဇာအားထုတ်လို့ဇန်သမာဓိရသွားတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေမှာအာယုတစ်ခုထဲမှာအကြာကြီးစိုက်ထားနိုင်တယ်လို့တဲ့အကြာကြီးစိုက်ကြီးနေတဲ့သမာဓိလိုပါပဲအဲ့ဒီခဏိကသမာဓိဓာတ်တူစွန့်ရည်တူအဲ့ဒါကျန်ကံများမှာပြထားပါတယ်အာယုံမှာစိတ်ထားခြင်းအတူတူပဲဒီကအတိတ်တွေပေါ်လဲအာယုံမှာစိတ်တာခဏိကသမာဓိရတော့ကိုယ်ကအာယုတစ်ခုထဲမှာစိုက်ထားတာအဲ့ဒါနဲ့ဓာတ်တူပဲအပ္ပနာသမာဓိကစိတ်ကိုညစ်တဲ့အောင်ထားနိုင်တယ်လို့ခဏိကသမာဓိရလည်းပဲစိတ်ကိုညစ်တဲ့အောင်ထားနိုင်တယ်လို့ဆိုလို့ရတယ်
Further, it is said, apito viya, that this refers to the concentration that is done when people develop the absorptions, the jhanas, worldly jhanas, and the mind becomes calmly established on a single object, on the samatha object. So when people practice concentration practices, they develop this type of samatha jhana called appana. And in this absorption, the prior consciousness is jhana absorption consciousness. And then the next one, and the next one, the next one. One after another, this type of consciousness is arising on the same object. And, for example, if this jhana lasts for 5 minutes, that means for 5 minutes the mind is sticking to that object of the jhana without moving. And this is called appana samadhi, or absorption concentration. And by saying apito viya, the text is saying that just as those who practice jhana can keep their mind on that object for a long time. So too, Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, has this same power to place the mind on the ever new arising object again and again and again. So Khanika Samadhi takes as its object the newly arising object, which moment by moment, whereas absorption takes as its object a single object. But both of these are able to keep the mind stable.
Belo Pippa, the Khanika Samadhi ha Apana Samadhi lu Seko, Yintiao, Tani the less or it, Nigoya, Chiro, Shavo, Dubare.
So one has to, the question occurs, well, how can this happen? What is it that has to happen for the Khanika Samadhi, the momentary Samadhi, to be able to keep the mind stable, just like absorption, so that it is calm? So how does this happen? We have to look for the answer to this question.
David Shimjade, Sayadawgyi Pawata Mano to the Gali don't have it. Pota Mano Sara Pitnira, only Pita Mano Pitnira, a Samapia Pitnira. Samapia is only the one in the body. The near poesy, she know, Saint body, Macat the one in the body, at a potam, and I look over it. Potam, no, since Samapia, Pinny, ma Dhamma, Panditarama Seko, Malum said, Yintiao, Tana, and yes, we're debatable.
So the teachers explain the meaning by saying pavatamano, and that means occurring. So, but this mana, the suffix mana in this word, indicates that it has to be continuously occurring, like a stream or like a line of ants, one after another. This is what is meant by the word pavatamano. Only if the momentary concentration occurs continuously is it able to keep the mind calm and stable.
Pota Manoma, Pota Sura Kriya Valley. Mana Suraga, present participate, David Posicelo. Never Pinne Samapia Pinne, David Lucy. At our Tisi Jello, Tisugago, don't hire.
The word pavatamano is combined of a verb and a suffix, and the verb is pavatam, which means to occur. And mana indicates present, the meaning of a present participle. So occurring, it has the meaning of occurring, not just once, but continuously occurring in the present.
Bema Pia Maro, Aramane, Lolo, say, Poli, Ayubo. To Goloma, Shuguji, Military, Nale, Sale, Tile, Coilate, Sunlight, Soundlight, Mele, Jolly, Nale, Chaleza, Little Kata, Melopita Punagasa. Choosy, I am not Japan. She queens ye, Jover. Very shoes the idea, legging Puni Pora. The shoe look over there. Leguinega, Legua Cleary Lubody. Yaginega, Yagua Cleary Lubody. Tete Pora. The Aqua Cleary. Aramani, a tete Pora. One by 6 months, the Epoca, Ponguli, a tepola, Pinguli, a tepola. Not only Popola, not only for a pumpkin, some Piapola. The other one, the Karakala, Pura body, Ada body, Tali body. And Yona body, Kaita body, toe, the body. Karakanaria, Tali, Pola, Shara body, Tali. Senior Shouted Kamalachiro, Sikatareka, Chora Pola, the Lana Pola, the Shara Pola, the Dario Biora, the Aramanisura Tajora, Lenge Punu Pinida, the Porta Mana Ayo Mavatama. That teacher, oh, Lomida Hamatijaro, London, if she did a Lamateja, count him up for one body. Who Lolo's a Pinida, and not teacher. Aramani Lolo's Poli though I found him such as I unite. Pota Mano Kiniame. Say, Yena Chaniame to Suluravani.
Where does the Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, need to occur? It is said aramane, on the presently arising object. Our whole body is like a large field of observation, and within our body, that large field, there's seeing and hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, lifting, moving, placing, bending, stretching, rising, falling, blinking, opening and closing the eyes. So all these things are happening within our field of observation, and there's a new object arising. This is like within a rice field, an individual paddy. So there's a small thing within this big field of observation, all these different types of things that can arise. The newly arising one is the object to be observed. This is aramane. So when we sit, there's rising and falling again and again. This is our newly arising object. And in between rising and falling, we may experience things like heat or cold, aching, numbness. From time to time there's hearing. In doing the walking, we put the attention on the legs, and lifting arises, moving arises, placing arises. These are the objects that we observe. This is what is meant by aramane. And it must be occurring in the object. That means it must be there. It must be fresh. It must be occurring in the presently arising object. That is what is definite. The object that has already ended is no longer there. It's not definite. The object that has not yet arisen yet is also not there. It's only the presently arising object. So it is said, pavatamano, it must occur, falling collectedly, aramane, on the presently arising object, rising, falling, and so on.
Ayo pore kaitama saksai chado de Khanika Samadhi ha jabya machi yabu de Didantaran sura. Didantaran atara cha kwallapo. Now niya kena wani. Cha kwalla machi yabu de. Jacolam Yavusa to Kunaku, she knows Sister Niamas, so that they were Yogo, who yogi tiny jungle. The Kunaku Sister Nina Chadama Ponoma Mona or Bolero Pianina. Do that to Kujeme Chadama Pomoya or Lord Kunaku Sister Canina. I don't know. Era Nitandra Kovare Jamasi Jama Pumunella Jamasi Kuna Magledia Leve, the Kunaku Jada Makirita Pumuya Olu Jamasi Kolamasi Edi Kolamasi Mashidlu Pianima.
The Khanika Samadhi, the momentary concentration that occurs on the presently arising object, must occur without a break. It is said nirantarang. Ni means without, and antara means gap. So there can't be any gap in between one moment of samadhi and the next. Like the floor that we're sitting on, the pieces of wood, the parquet is one and another are contiguous. They touch each other so that there's not a gap for dust to get in between the two pieces of wood. And in the mind too, so that the dust of the kilesas can't enter the mind stream. The moments of concentration must be connected one after another, and only then will it keep the mind calm.
Mimi Kure Maga Iowa the Mure who Sugaga Suguya the Mure New Yoga Ponaga the Mu, Pinaga the Mu, China the Mu, Tira the Mu, Pura the Mu, Ira the Mu, Mara the Mu, Pura the Mu, Shora the Mu, Lana the Mu, Chara the Mu, Yada the Mu, Leda the Mu, Yoga Shia. Todo Sigaro Podmia Ayanego. Go say outside video. Chitaga shoot a capa. Say Dwaragar, I will never say Dwaragar, Tata, the new level. Pelope, Shupe, Ayoma, Queli di Melo. Tamaricona, Saitare, Tamarigaro. Saitabo, Tatare, Luni, after Pia. Ika Karina Luko, Ika Karina. Tinimo, Tunido, Tinimo, China, Afian. I only Pelope, Yozo, Popo, Pelope, Pipi. Should you give my Sai Johnny, the Mure and the Afian, Pima. Very Khanika to Mariga, Akiba,
In one's body, there's not just one object, not just one thing to be observed. There's rising, there's falling, sitting, touching, stiffness, tension, heat, cold, lightness, movement, lifting, moving, placing, standing, turning. So there's a variety of kinds of objects. But the mind, when we apply effort and accurate aim, the Khanika Samadhi is always well established on the object. It occurs in a single way, ekakarena. No matter how many different objects there are, it is always well established on the object. It has that same quality again and again. So only when it occurs like this, with the same quality every time of being well established on the object, only then will the Khanika Samadhi become fully energized.
So yet you strong and lady. I put a kite of my body, Kudu Nine Valley. the kunat who sits a lavi, so we say, Swan answer the Kuyidu say Swan and Lydia. Nene a little bit of Miala Kajaro. Swan Aji to Kupila, Argoness Swan Kupila.
So when this calmness of mind occurs one after another, when they become contiguous, then the power that this has becomes very great. It goes from being just a little bit of power to being very, very large.
You know, so I used to go people yogi got probably was a I only for right. Second name, sight channel, Yachiva. The chain sight challenge, the chain sight challenge, no changing sight challenge. That is a pillar to go to go. You know, so I need to connect with Sister with Miala with the say her, Madonna, who so are a killer, a kindler, a look higher, but we are good padron. Porai Ayobama Kona Tati Tatia Kaka Chani, Kaka Tini. Lota Katira Babilo Sora Purivia Asylum. Or at the Ayopola and anyone that you look at, don't appear. You know, Poman don't ale payame, don't abolish the tea capi so ye. No payanga, Khanika Samadhi Sura. I owe Kayama. I owe the daily Kayama, Sayadaw. Era Khanika Samadhi corridor.
To develop a very powerful, to make this samadhi very powerful, starting with the rising and the falling, it's very important for the mind to fall collectedly on every arising object, one after another. When this power, the calmness of samadhi, occurs one after another without a break, then the mind no longer can be shaken. It becomes firm. And what is it that helps this to happen? When on every arising object, sati sticks to the object. And this happens because of the application of ardent effort, the pushing the mind to reach the object, just using a regular amount of energy. And if one pushes the mind to reach the object, uses ardent energy, then sati sticks to the object, and with that, when sati sticks to the object, Khanika samadhi, momentary concentration, will be there with the sati falling collectedly on the object. So this is Khanika samadhi, momentary concentration.
Khanika samadhi, I'm a Pilusi. Khanika samadhi, Lowam Shifu Solosia. A theatre polare Ayumoma. To Dora, Mampiamata Pidora, Mumma Pidora. Young Wawa Pidora, and a Bali of Moha look over Mara Mandamati about it. Mandamati, already shouty, Pukutatua Lulu, ngā lolo, tu lolo, atta lolo, boli, yokjamima lolo, sura boli. Alwari fila dora be. Atalo upon timati, alwari tira, da anji jiri be. Tadia nebido lebe, amari be, chansinane, amari pionane, amari le lunane. Eri amari ha, yunziari be. Aku amado tuara aku be, moa ki kanaita ha, da. Moa kita yunziabe. No aku tu reception na dari yunziari be. Era ego yune tabo le kino le. Ahirika notapa ko era le pa do ya. Sei thaicho mu mashi do sei ha le be luin do le udisa phit do do. Adi chu kwe awu ma sei ka ma kat do luin do le. Adi moha ahirika notapa udisa soda ga do ma kaung neစိတ်ကိုမှီပြီးတော့ဖြစ်နေတဲ့အင်္ဂါတွေပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒါတွေအစုံဖြစ်တော့ပါတယ်ရိုးရိုးပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒါနဲ့ပဲအချိန်ကုန်တာတွေများပါတယ်အခုလိုရိုးသေးသေးစိတ်ဆက်ဆက်မဖူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်လည်းပဲရိုးရိုးပုဂ္ဂိုလ်နဲ့ဘာမှမထူးပါဘူး
If this Khanika Samadhi momentary concentration is either weak or not there at all, then on every newly arising object there will be wavering, there will be indecision, lack of clarity, confusion. This is called moha in Pali, delusion. One won't know what is really there as it is. One won't know what is true as it is. One will instead know it in the wrong way, as if there's a being there, I or you, a man or woman. One will take that to be the truth. One will miss the truth. And this type of this is what is known as defilement or dirt in the mind. And because of these, because of not seeing things the way they really are, but taking them in the wrong way, because of this, one plans wrong things, one speaks wrong things, and one does wrong things. And misdeeds are things which are disgusting and despicable. And they have at their base, the root cause for them is moha or delusion. So this too is despicable. And further, there's more unwholesomeness that follows because of the moha, and there's a lack of shame regarding this, ahirika. There's also lack of moral fear regarding doing wrong. This is anotapa. And because the mind has no control, it becomes scattered. So it no longer sticks to the object, and this is called odicca, or restlessness. So these four qualities of moha, ahirika, anotapa, odicca, or delusion, lack of shame, lack of moral fear, and restlessness, these factors occur every time the mind is unwholesome. And for most people, this is what happens most of the time. Also, if now one doesn't practice respectfully, with meticulous care, and with continuity, then also one is no different from ordinary people.
ဒီ ဒီခါမျိုးမှာယောဂီအမိခံရတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေတရားပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေနဲ့ဘာမှမခြားတော့တရားပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေလည်းဒီလိုပဲစိတ်ဆူဆီးမှုရှိမှမရှိပဲကိုလွတ်ထားတာယောဂီကလည်းဒီတိုင်းမှာစိတ်လွတ်ထားတာလွတ်နေတာဘာမှမတူဆက်လွတ်နေမယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့လူကြီးစရာလောဘအာယုန်နဲ့တွေ့လို့ရှိရင်လောဘတွေထပ်ဖြစ်ပြန်ရောစိတ်ဆိုးစရာနဲ့ကြုံပြီးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်စိတ်ဆိုးတဲ့ဒေါသတွေစိတ်မချမ်းသာမှုတွေထပ်ဖြစ်ပြန်ရောဒီလိုပဂတိပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေမှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တနေ့အဲ့ဒါတွေပဲဖြစ်တာများတော့ပါပဲတန်ရှင်းတဲ့စိတ်ကလေးဖြစ်ခွင့်ရမရပါဘူးအဲ့ဒါတွေမတန်ရှင်းတဲ့စိတ်တွေလည်းပဲအချိန်ကိုရတာများတာပဲဒီလိုပဲမလဲလူလိုစိတ်မထားတတ်တော့ဘူးတန်ရှင်းတဲ့စိတ်မဖြစ်တော့အတိညာလည်းမဖြစ်တော့လူတိညာရှိပြီးတော့လူထက်လူလည်းမဖြစ်တော့ဘူးကိုယ်จิตတရားတွေကဖြစ်ပြန်ပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်လူနဲ့တော့မတူတော့ဘူးကဘာမှာလူနဲ့မတူသူတွေလူလိုစိတ်မထားတတ်သူတွေလူတိညာရှိပြီးတော့လူထက်လူဖြစ်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေအတိညာမဲ့တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေများသွားပါပြီတဲ့အဲ့ဒါကဘာကြီးဖြစ်စီတဲ့ခေါ်တာပဲ
At this time, that is, when one is not practicing respectfully, meticulously, and continuously, at this time, people who take the name of yogi are no different from people on the outside, because they let their minds go without trying to collect the mind. And if one continues letting one's mind go, then when one encounters an object that is likable, there will be lobha or greed. When one encounters an object that is detestable, then there will be anger or unhappiness. And for ordinary people, day by day, this is what happens most of the time. And the wholesome, clean mind has no chance to arise. So with this, people aren't able to, without the wholesome mind arising, people aren't able to keep their heart humane, keep a humane attitude. And therefore, there's no chance to develop the type of knowledge that is special human knowledge. Because of actions, wrong actions, people no longer behave like a true human being. So in the world, most people are like this, lacking true human behavior, lacking a humane heart, and lacking special human knowledge. And this amounts to the destruction of the world. Loka bala tia kinsi tua vi de ko bain ka ba le ko ma pyat si ya aung lo thai chou nai ne hiriu ta ba tia mashi ro bu de era ko bain ka ba le ko pyat si pa lai ta be a chin so de phit la lo sin da ko bain ka ba pyat si de ko de ko ba pyat de so da cha mo hu dia be ko bain ne ko ba le phit lai ta ba Ko bain ne kaba li phit de uri de mya ni lo aku kaba ha ma tin ngai no People don't understand that that they need to choose between deeds that are good and deeds that are wrong. So people don't have the sense of fear or shame, moral fear and moral shame regarding what they do. And these two dhammas, moral shame regarding what we do, hiri, and moral dread regarding what doing wrong. These two dhammas are what protects our own individual world, because they keep us from doing wrong. And without these, people who lack these two qualities, their own individual world is being destroyed, because what destroys our world is the misdeeds that we do. Because there's a very large number of people in the world who lack these two qualities of hiri and ottappa, the world is no longer stable and peaceful. People who are disgusted and despise misdeeds will avoid doing them. And by avoiding them, one becomes gradually pure. And the environment is not harmed through what we do. Therefore, because of our avoiding misdeeds, the environment becomes peaceful. Because one can control one's own individual world, the environment becomes peaceful. How good this is.
Khanika Samadhi, Suzona, the PV alcohol. Suzona Kauna solution, go there, the Keshi, or Hoshi, a lady go by Yanet Tilamo. SADHU Tilamo, SADHU Tilamo, go since I the Tilamo. A low way she related to the Tilama. Amakamare. With the little one she got me. The little one on the net jaw loving. The two yogi, the Congo no one, Mahmata lady, the she lady there. The gate of our Madrid or 2 years of Shido. The little one piece on your son, a key, a chain and Londoya on it. Samadhi little one, she will young and go up on the Tibu solution. Come up on Lolo, Sarapiavi. You did him a Lolo, she is a Malolo. Mayamana Malolo, Sarapiava, Piero. And a cook of Sinzajava. Put on a chain, show me Pitavane. Yashida, say Lego, Joshi Sone. Don't say China Javati. Do say like Yashida, say Lego, Joshi on a Tomchata Luce, no. Digo Laya Yu Manabahu, Era Twitchava. Povasa Lolochi, who are Kamo Chana, look at Kamo Chana, Ledo Dwavi. The Malay Povasa looked at the Mark Chanda, Lemia, who's Luciano, Chanda Nemu, Song Shong, however. The go to the low she, I'm yet 12. I'm yet 12, needed a bit of my job. The Tinigo, you did it, you are Tomsa Soluciano, or I'm yet Tropoyano, Lama Yamahu. There are delayed Lilin at Tetumare. Show yoga did the Nento by Jodovi. Lazy Piosia Ya on Boli, Josako Lubare. Jondari ha home was a shiva. Chaga home of Pilate, a low. A Yode Kama, alone let you on lower. Canaposa village, Canaposa Toyame. Pasa village, Pasa Fireman. Nali on lower man, take on so take on Nali on lower man. Dhamma champion Tore Kama. A looked at a low. John Yoko, Siashima, yea, your name. Kutiri had a comb your name. It's a dear to the soda. Jonah, Johnny Nebulusino, home of Peter. Home of Paye, Jonah Peter. Yogi Elevenizim Haniera. Malu Tiria Mapaye, Jonah, home of Padre, Sita Pare. Every yogi or Siaria Timicinabu. Chausia Titani, Mamma, home of Pilata, Pamela, also the Jonah or Nenema Machinabu. Machinata Mono Mohu. Pia does it in a Tatuya Tane, Maluya Malaso Rapoli, Eramu of Tebu. The Chusajava, Chimay Shiva did it. There are delayed. Davana, Khanika Maria, Palo Tambushi, the rest of the Chivo, Tamatamaha, Karama, Apanata Marina, Tandu Chitas Ravoli, Noni Jama Edari, Saduna Letri, Pausa Vido Yoga Home, Piro Podamia, I only go. A meetata video, what is it here? A meetata video, Mamma, Maniera, Low at the last Ravoli. A tali chini, Pira Mola, Saraboli. The show yogi there, a mimetachi moon. Dali chini, I looked at them. I don't have a mimetate, tray yana in a kid. A meter video, mate, tray yana in a jewelry, no need to have a set of a Tidia of the night, or a molu, the Mavaya also.
In order to control oneself and make one's world peaceful, as well as the environment peaceful, one has to have energy. And to get this energy, we practice. First of all, we keep sila to control our physical and verbal behavior. And then we purify the mind by developing momentary concentration, Khanika Samadhi, and making it good bit by bit. When the Khanika Samadhi is strong, then one will surely come to see the real things which are inside one. And one will see these not because one has heard about them from the teacher or read about them or thought about them, but they will come naturally, automatically through the practice. This is guaranteed to happen through application of the practice. So now it has been 3 weeks, and there are still some yogis who are not able to note properly. And needless to say, if they aren't able to note properly, they are also not able to see true nature. So in this amount of time, it shows that either the yogi does not respect the practice, or is not working meticulously, or is not working continuously. So one has to think about this for oneself. Don't throw away this valuable opportunity. So if you can't use the opportunity that exists here to do the practice, then you won't get the benefit of having come here. So coming here, one has left behind the pleasures that one had at one's home, left behind sense pleasures. And here, if one doesn't get the pleasure of the Dhamma, then one is losing on two sides. So one needs to be able to make a profit for oneself. And Sayadawgyi is showing you the method for making a profit. So if you are not able, if you don't use it, then you are not seeing that this is a way to make profit. So Sayadawgyi hopes that you will all use the method that he's explaining, and try to have something to say every time you see the teacher. Sayadawgyi gives the example of what happens when we go to school, that we have homework to do. And so that means we go to school, the teacher gives us an assignment, and then when we get home, we have to do the homework. If we have math homework, we have to do the math problems. If it's a reading exercise, we have to do the reading. If it's science, we have to read so that we understand it. And then, when we go back to school, the next day, we can feel confident when we face the teacher. We'll have our homework done. So the yogi is noting every day. And if knowledge is not present when they observe, then that's like not doing your homework. So, as in school, the teacher is not satisfied when the student comes without the homework. They don't hate the student, but they don't like it that the student is not doing what they need to do to gain knowledge. And it's the same way here. So there is lots of time left, and Sayadawgyi has spoken today about how valuable Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, is. It's like absorption, the concentration found in jhana. And tomorrow Sayadawgyi will continue to speak about this in theory and practice. Further, there are some yogis who do not like to note. And Sayadawgyi is going to discuss this. Is it necessary to label? Isn't it enough just to look? So Sayadawgyi will speak tomorrow about the drawbacks of not using labels and the advantages to using labels. So now the hour is up, and this will be continued tomorrow. That's all for today. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.